By the way, how many of you have people that you just love to hang around because they treat you with respect? When you spend time with them and you walk away, you can even see their faces. You just kind of smile because they just make you feel good about being around them. How many of you have friends like that? Colleagues like that? I have some bad news for you. When you have interacted with these individuals in the past, you, my friends, have been drugged. Quite literally, you've been drugged. There's a very powerful, you see, when people treat us with respect, there's a very powerful set of neurotransmitters that get released. Serotonin, oxytocin are some of them. And what happens is this. Respectful behaviors from other people actually trigger the release of those powerful neurotransmitters that make us feel good. And our brains are very smart. Every time I'm with someone and they treat me with respect, my brain says, ooh, that felt really good. Where'd that come from? And then you isolate the person, and they become your source. So what do? Well, you want more of that good stuff later, right? So you protect your source. All of a sudden, you go out of your way to start helping people that have treated you with respect because you want more of that in the future. Is it feel-good stuff? Yeah, but it's science. This is like brain science 101. So respect feels good. In addition to me doing my best work as part of this organization, when I'm treated with respect, I also tend to reciprocate that much more consistently. Here's a couple of things that we can look for organizationally when we have high cultures of respect. Number one, higher job satisfaction. Number two, improved physical health. It's actually a physically healthier environment when we treat people with respect. We attract, engage, and keep the best, not only teachers, but also students. Students are much more likely to engage themselves in their learning when they feel they're being respected. Minimally by their teachers, hopefully by their peers as well. Better communication and learning, improved client satisfaction, doesn't matter whether it's an internal client, your students, parents, doesn't matter who. Higher productivity and ultimately higher resilience, simply by managing the chemistry between our interactions a little bit more effectively. Now, how many of you, let me ask you this, how many of you have certain individuals that have caused you pain in the past? In fact, when I say the word disrespect, you have faces flashing in front of your eyes. How many of you have people that you would go to great lengths to avoid being around if you could help it? Okay? Most of us do. Most of us do. And what happens is when we are treated with disrespect, there is also a very powerful drug effect, but it's opposite. Instead of cortisol and oxytocin, the brain releases, depending on the degree of the disrespect shown, and there's all kinds of behaviors that can communicate disrespect, either small or massive amounts of cortisol and adrenaline. Now, cortisol and adrenaline happen to be the fight or flight neurotransmitters. When we feel that we're under threat or under attack for anything, those chemicals kick in, and they are designed by evolutionarily to keep us safe. So all we are trying to do when treated with disrespect is basically assess if we can fight back, or if not, get away from it as quickly as we can. Now, and that effect, by the way, is much more durable than being treated by respect, unfortunately. The brain has one of my colleagues just this past week, she sent me an article. It was from the magazine Whole Living. And in the September article, it talked about what kinds of information the brain locks onto easily. It turns out that pleasant events, including being treated with respect, flow through the mind like water through a sieve. However, the brain is like Velcro for negative experiences. We remember those negative experiences from other people far more readily. And the reason is because they could, as far as our brain is concerned, they could affect our physical safety. So we have to make a note of those so that we keep ourselves safe in the future. What's really important is you don't even have to be the direct recipient of disrespectful behavior to be affected by it. You can simply witness somebody else being treated disrespectfully, and you make a mental note. And all of a sudden, the first thought is, sucks to be that person. Wouldn't want it to be me. But more importantly, I'm going to keep them at arm's length so it's not me in the future. So disrespectful behavior can actually be toxic to the entire organization. Okay? Consequences of disrespect: psychological harm, career interruption. Stress-related illnesses. In our own backyard, the Cleveland Clinic Hospital is one of the great research institutions in North America for cardiovascular health. They've recently discovered that cortisol actually leaves residue in your hair. So what they've started to do is do hair samples with people who have had cardiovascular illness or heart attacks. And what they are finding more and more frequently is that in the 3-month period leading up to heart attacks, people have elevated levels of cortisol in their systems. Cortisol also, by the way, is corrosive to the inside of your blood vessels. What is the body's normal response to lesions and cuts, which is what cortisol does in long-term situations? It scabs and scars over. And now you have these very smooth surfaces in your body that are supposed to have blood and cholesterol are supposed to be flying by, and all of a sudden they start sticking. So cortisol, while very important to get us out of harm's way, was never intended to be a long-term environment for our cardiovascular system. And unfortunately, when you have environments of disrespect, they tend to be very pervasive, and they don't go away overnight, only to be seen again 6 months later. They tend to be pervasive. Okay. Negative public attention, low morale and productivity, turnover, dropping out, low client satisfaction. So the question becomes, what can we do about this? What can we do individually and together to help create a more respectful work environment?